got a nice intimate group tonight. So if you want to throw out, suggestions or questions for your own business tonight, then I'd be more than happy to field some of those or get some discussion going around it. But what we're going to cover, it's a bit of a misleading title, really. Marketing Made Simple. I mean, marketing is not necessarily a simple topic. It's very, very broad. But what we are going to cover is, I'll call it the fundamentals, or getting back down to the first principles of marketing, because we're not going to dive into specific strategies per se, because I don't know, all the details of all your businesses, and what's applicable for one business may not be applicable for another. But when you understand the first principles behind marketing, you can make the right choices, and then the way you apply those choices are going to be more effective. Hey, how's it going? Okay, so $1 million question, what is marketing? What do you guys think? John, what's marketing?
It's getting a message out about what you do.
Getting a message out, yeah, absolutely. What else? Sam, what's marketing for you?
For me, it's finding the right person to send the message to.
Okay, the right target. Awesome. Fiona, on the hot seat, what's marketing to you? Yeah, I know. So we're just saying, what is marketing? What is marketing? Promotions. Okay, cool. Harry, what do you think?
Yeah, promoting my services.
Yeah. Look, I reckon it's pretty broad. It begins way before a sale happens, obviously, because that's the promotion part, the awareness part. Welcome, come on in, find a seat. You've missed the intense questions at the beginning. And then it's also around how you present your business, and it's the after sale follow-up. It's like everything to do with your business, the way your business is presented is all marketing as well. And we talked a lot about that last week. We talked about how we engage with existing customers and how we get them to come back and turn them into raving fans and leverage referrals from them. But really tonight is going to be about that forward-facing element of how do we get people in the door to our business? How do we bring people in and make some, well, not necessarily convert the sales, we'll talk about that next week, but how do we generate that awareness and interest? So 4 things we're going to cover tonight. We're going to cover why consistency is so important, and I'm going to give you some tools and some ways to think about that. The questions that must be answered before you spend any time or effort or money on marketing. There's certain questions that you must be able to answer. How to create an unlimited marketing budget. Who would like an unlimited marketing budget? Good answer. And why most marketing doesn't work and what to do about it. So let's have a go at see how we can answer some of these. So the first part is I'm going to cover around these questions that must be answered. And this is a concept I call the marketing blueprint. And did everyone get a copy of the book the Shire sent out, my book? Did everyone get a copy of this book? Because what I'm going to cover, you didn't, so make sure you get in touch with the Shire and they've got a copy for you. But everything I cover, obviously I'm going into a lot more detail here tonight, but the bones of it are covered in there as well. So it's a reference point for you. But the marketing blueprint is basically 5 things. It's, to Sam's point, understanding who's your target. So who's your ideal customer you're going after? What problem are you solving for them? And we're going to go into a bit of detail around these. Your superpower, like what's unique about you, what's your special thing that you're really good at in terms of how you solve that problem for that person. We want to have a bit of an understanding about our competition. We don't want to focus too much on that, but just a bit of an understanding. And all of that culminates into this beautiful thing that goes by many names, your point of difference, unique sales proposition or unique value proposition. And this is the thing that you really want to have a handle on before you spend any money or any time on marketing. And there's another little thing we're going to cover which sort of puts your point of difference on steroids or gives you an extra edge, and that's around a guarantee. So let's dive into each of those. And Sam, you mentioned that the target is the most important, not the most important, but an important part of marketing. And I 100% agree, because you could have the best marketing message or the best offer crafted, but if you're sending it to the wrong person, it's going to fall flat. So I've got a little exercise for you. Hey, how's it going, Julian? Rezi, would you take Yeah. Oh, you can pass them all out? Beautiful. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So what I'm passing around here is an ideal customer profile or an avatar profile. And what you're going to find, what I want you to think about is if you look at all your customers right now, we'll find, I talked about this a couple of times, the 80-20 principle. Who can remember what the 80-20 principle is? What was that, Fiona? Yeah, so Pareto Principle says that majority of your outputs come from minority of your inputs. So that's what this is all about. So, you know, it's not always 80-20, it might be 90-10, it might be 60-40, but majority comes from the minority. So you want to get an idea on who are your top 20% of customers that are a pleasure to deal with. The other way to think about this, which I talked about last week, is you've got your A, B, C and D customers. So we definitely don't want to be targeting these people. We obviously want to be thinking about these people. So what I've handed out there is a bit of a tool to help you think through, what does this person look like? This person or this business. If you're in business to business, you might complete it from a business perspective. But generally, you're always marketing to a person. And the idea there is, and I'm going to give you a moment, or feel free to start while I'm talking just to fill some things out, but the idea is not to be able to fill it out completely, but to use it as a prompt to think about the things that are important in regard to your target. Now, do you have one ideal customer, or might you have 2 or 3 different ideal customers? Could have 2 or 3, yeah. You probably haven't got 7. That would be too many. But you definitely want to have, like, it's okay to have 2, 3, 4 categories of customers. But when you fill this out, you want to think about the one person. So think about the one category that you might want to focus on first, and fill that form out thinking about a specific person. Like get a name if you can, if you know someone, and write out what you can about that person. And the reason we want to do this is when it comes time to write an offer or write a headline or write some marketing copy, when you know who you're writing to, it's much easier to choose the words and the point of focus than trying to appeal to this sort of general person that you can't quite see or understand very well. So when you know the person, in our business, I've got 3 different avatars, and each one I've got a specific client in mind that I think about when we're choosing to market to any particular one. So take a moment. There are more of those handouts. So there's a pile down the back there. Resi, is there no spares? Okay, there was like, oh, they're up there. Okay, cool. Do you want another one, or? Yeah, Pat, will you pass that behind you, Pat? Thanks. Oh, you got one. You guys have got one already. Okay. Oh, Resi's on it. Okay. So I'll give you a couple of minutes. Go through there and have a go at filling out as best you can. And to be honest, this takes a bit of time. Like, I'm not suggesting in 2 minutes you're going to get it done, but you'll get a start and start to fill in some of the things. So one I do want to point out, which is worth spending quite a bit of time, is, don't tell me I haven't got it on there. Yeah, highest values. So under behaviours on the second page, the highest values. You really want to understand what are the values of your customer. And this becomes really important when we start thinking about offers and how we craft our business. So what are their highest values? And you know, obviously there can be a ton of different values, but specific to your business or your product or your offering or your service, think about what their highest values might be.
Sorry, did you just say the main type of customer, or we can put in a couple if they're quite different?
Yeah, so you would ideally, if you've got say 2 or 3, you would do one of those for each. But just for the purpose of tonight, just to get started, just pick one, yeah, and just have a go at filling it out.
Can you give us an example of what you mean by highest value?
What's that?
Can you give us an example of what you mean by highest value?
Highest value, so it could be safety, right? A highest value could be, it could be price, it could be value, it could be quality, could be care or hair. Care, yeah, for animals, yeah, absolutely. But you would find there's a range of level of care. Like everyone might say they care, but for some people it's just the number one thing, whereas others it might be convenience. Okay, just to finish up there, probably for most of you, I mean certainly my experience doing that exercise is that I need to spend a whole lot more time doing it usually. There's a lot to sort of, dive in to really understand your customer. Now, as we talk about this, we're going to be obviously crafting a lot of our marketing around these avatars, these people you're writing down. Does that mean these are the only people that buy from your business? No, right? I mean, if someone comes into your business that doesn't fit this description, you don't sort of close the door and say, sorry, we can't serve you. But what we are talking about is that when we're putting towards an effort to market or run a promotion, these are the people we're looking to speak to. Because we know when these people come in, they love our business and our business is a fit for them. So that's the idea here. So now let's take a look at the next one, which is the problem. It's easy to think about our businesses as a product or service, but at the end of the day, what everyone's looking for when they buy our product or service is they're looking for a feeling, and they're looking to get something or relieve something. Normally, it's normally an emotion that underpins it, and there's a problem that they're looking to solve. So, and that could be a very simple little problem, or it could be a big problem for them. But starting to think about it in those terms helps you understand the emotions that person is seeking. And with every buying decision, again, well, I'm not going to write again, it's the same here, it's the 80-20. So the 20% is the logic, the 80% is what? Heart, did you say? Yeah, emotion. Yeah, feeling. So even when we think we're making logical decisions, you'd be amazed at the actual underlying drivers that make us make those logical decisions. So when we're thinking as marketers, we want to understand what is the emotion that they're seeking? What is the problem that we're solving for them? So take a moment, take a look at the profile you've written down there and think about what is the problem you're solving for this person? What's the problem? What words would they use to describe that problem? All right? It's a tough challenge to think about, but you're not providing dog care, right? You're providing, what's the...
All the butchers I look after are, are kids substitutes. It's a childcare facility for furry babies.
Right.
That's what they're offering.
And Lou, you're not just providing bread, right? If people just want bread, they can go and buy bread anywhere. They buy your bread for a reason. There's an emotion, there's something deeper they're looking for than just to get some bread to have with dinner. So have a think about what's the problem that you solve for your customer. What's the problem? I'll give you a couple of minutes to write a few notes on that. So I have handed out this other form here, which is the marketing blueprint. This is going to be your summary sheet. You don't need to fill out the top one, the ideal customer. You've put a bit more detail on that other form, but certainly you can transfer it over here later if you'd like to. When we finish up, this page is going to be a bit of a summary on the major components of your blueprint. So under point number 2, what's the problem you solve for your ideal customer? And if everyone's willing to have a go at sharing what they've got. I mean, I know in our business, depending on the avatar we're talking about, while we're in theory providing business coaching, we're often providing peace of mind, certainty, and freedom for our clients. They're the emotions they're looking for. Anyone else want to have a go at what they think they're giving to their customers? What the emotions are? You stumped?
Something that's easy to use and not complicated.
Something so ease of use, simplicity. Yep, cool. Fiona?
Trust, reliability, and professionalism.
Cool. So they're the things you want, like the reason we want to know these, and I sort of said it earlier, is as we start crafting our message, and it might be even the questions we ask in the sales process or the copy, like these are the things that we're going to get to and we want to convey in our messaging. Because then these people, if this is what they're looking for, they start to identify with what you're writing, and it hits the emotion versus just we're the cheapest, compared to the competition. And certainly, I guess that's an underlying theme behind, I think, most businesses in here that I would say would be true, not knowing all the details of your businesses. You don't want to be a price competitive business. We covered that a lot on the profit model on the first session. Like, we want to make sure we've got strong margins because we're small businesses and we generally don't deal in high volume. Maybe your business is different, but generally small businesses are lower volume, so you want higher margin. If we're going to be higher margin, we've got to give people a reason to pay more. There's got to be a point of difference in something they're buying. And so our message has to connect. Obviously our product has to be good as well. But there's a great book here by Al Reese and Jack Trout called The 22 Laws of Marketing. And in there, one of the laws is the law of perception. And the law of perception. And that says that, it's sort of speaking to this point here, the logic versus emotion. Often we think if we've just got a great product, and we do really well at providing that product, if you build it, they will come type thing. But the reality is that people form these perceptions around things by what they hear from others or what their marketing tells them. And that is what goes on inside their mind, that then they wrap logic around and explain to themselves in that way. So we've really got to be understanding that we are, like for our brand and our product or our service, we are in control of that perception. So we get to sort of craft that story and that message. So that understanding those emotions helps us to do that. Where did I put my... Okay, so now your superpower. So superpower, we have a tool for this one too. So in thinking about your product or your service, there's lots of different attributes to it that your customer might think about. You want to think about, and this starts to tie into your point of difference or uniqueness, you want to think about a word or a phrase that people associate with your brand, with your product, so that when people compare you to others, they know that, oh, you're the person who is this. This is what makes you different. But a way to think about that, and again, these are just different tools to give you a way to think. You can't see that too clearly, but what I've got here, on the points of value on the bottom, that says speed, quality, friendliness, creativity, innovation, ease of use, security, price. So these are different ways that or different lenses that someone might view your product or service. And what we want to get to is, I want you to write these out for your product or your business. What might be the different things that people consider or think about when they're buying your product and service. And then we're going to look at what is your ideal customer value. Because it's not always going to be the same. So for this example, right, this customer, they do want speed, they definitely want quality, they definitely want creativity, but the innovation is not too important to them. And so you can start to overlay your ideal customer over these characteristics of your business, of your product or service. Does that make sense, or is it utterly confusing? Rosie? Yeah, I'll give those to you. Thank you. So price might be one, appearance, availability, range, no, not really. So you've got to think about, okay, yeah, someone might say, I want it all, but at the end of the day, most people know they can't have everything. And if they're going to sacrifice something, there'll be something on their list they're willing to give up to get something else. And there'll be something on their list, there'll be 2 or 3 things on their list that they absolutely is the most important thing to them to have. right? For you guys, it might be quality of product. They may not care so much on the range or whatever, but the quality is absolutely number one. And price is probably not going to be the number one.
Can you read those out so that we can write?
Yeah, and you don't have to put these, but they're just examples. So just, and probably very similar for most businesses. So speed, quality, friendliness, creativity. I keep calling that one innovation, but I don't think it is, but innovation would be a good one. Ease of use, security, price, appearance. So they're just examples, right? Your business or your product might have other ones that would be relevant. So all the things that someone could consider or deem to have some level of importance in terms of your product or your service. And I'll just skip ahead. Where we're going with this is then once you've sort of pegged where your ideal customer is, you then peg where you're good. Like where do you excel on those same attributes? And what you're looking for is to line up the points that match. So you could say for this business here, quality and creativity are things that you are good at and the customer really values. Also price is one. So you might tailor or say, okay, they're the three things we are going to be absolutely exceptional at. I don't like the price one. I don't know why I put that there as an example. Try and find things apart from price, unless you are a very good low-cost producer. But so this is sort of understanding what you want to craft your business to be. It's better to be exceptional at a few things that your customer really values than to be average at everything. And the truth is, if you're trying to be good at everything, you're really being average at everything because no one's good at everything. It's very hard to do. So it's better to know what does my customer really, really value and what are we really, really good at and what aligns there. So we can sacrifice the things that we're actually not that good at and the customer doesn't value as much. Because if you are willing to sacrifice some of those things, you can take the time, energy or money resources that you would have put into those things and put them into the things that the customer really values. And what the beauty of this is that most businesses out there try and be good at everything. And by doing that, you're all sort of competing in this realm of mediocrity versus you just pick 2 or 3 things that you can just be, boom, up here, and that starts to be your claim of what you're really good at, and people can't touch you because you are absolutely exceptional at those things. Then your messaging can be around those things, and your customer values those things, so now you start to make a connection. Now you start to stand out versus just being, like everybody else, vanilla, or making claims that maybe don't really get backed up by your offering.
So we're better off when it comes to scaling this actually interviewing a couple of A and B customers and...
Great idea. Yeah, ask your customers, definitely. Yeah, because right now you might be guessing.
And then checking whether we're delivering on that promise too.
100%.
That perception could be completely different too.
Great point. Yeah, for sure.
Tell us 10 reasons why you buy from us.
Yep.
Support us.
Great questions to ask. Yep. For sure. Yes, Fiona.
We actually had a survey as part of our retention plan that we sent out that asked exactly these questions.
Right, okay. And what do you find?
It is pretty much what we think, but it's always good to survey to know that it's what we think.
Yeah.
But it's,
Do you then intentionally neglect some things to excel in others, or is it not that intentional?
It has subtly changed, it has changed how we do things.
Yep.
So we know that we're appreciated for our reliability, our responsiveness and our professionalism, and therefore that's integrated into our marketing.
Yeah, and you make sure that whatever your internal systems are, that you deliver really well on those things. Yeah, cool. So, as much as we're talking about marketing here, we're also talking about business design. And that is almost, I don't know if you can say it's as important, but having a business that really is geared, really geared towards your ideal customers makes it easier to market. It makes it easier because you can stand on those claims and those points of difference. So I'll give you a few more minutes just to have a look at that. And you may not need to fill this out to know what it is for your business. Maybe you know that, okay, we are awesome at these 3 things and we know our customers love these 3 things. That's fine. This is just a tool to help you think through it. Just a thinking tool. And I haven't got it here, but a copy of it here. But the book that goes into a lot of detail on this is called Uncommon Service by Francis Frey. Really good book. She gives an example in there, which is not necessarily applicable to most people in this room, but of a bank in America, like a regional bank or a local bank, that realised that what people really wanted was accessibility and to be open different hours, like weekends and late hours. So they went to the effort of making convenience their number one thing. But in doing that, they could be more expensive because people love the convenience. Their ideal customer loved the convenience. They also revamped the internal way their stores were. You didn't go up to a teller. There were lounges there that you sit down. So it was a friendliness atmosphere. Convenience and friendliness was their thing. And, you know, because they understood what their customer wanted, and so they can completely just craft their business around that and then market accordingly, and they attract those people that value that. Yeah, I'll keep going. So here's another example. So this one's over in Canada, Holden Motors. They're around where they're out in the boonies. So they're 30 to 45 minutes out of a major centre. So the major centres around them are, you know, semi-large populations, maybe the size of, you know, Wangaratta and Albury together, but they're out in the country. They're like out where we are. So people have got to drive for 45 minutes to go and visit them. They've got 32 competitors within a 30-minute radius around them. So a reasonably competitive, they sell used cars. They started as a 2-bay gas station and a small used car lot with 3 employees. Today they're 130 bay with 100 plus employees and over 700 vehicles in stock. So they probably sell about 4,000 cars a year now. So their thing that they realise, well, what do you not like about buying cars? What's the one, or what are one of the, what is it?
Buying cars and stuff.
What do you hate about buying cars? Salesman. What about the salesman? Being sold to, right? Being sold to. And they knew that. They said people don't like the buying experience because they get pressure, it feels... So they made this no haggle, laid back, no pressure sales environment. So they don't haggle at all. The price is the price. There's no discussion about price. You can't go in and offer a lower price. It's just what it is. But they price fairly, but people go in knowing they don't have to do the haggle, right? If I don't like the price, I can walk away again, but I don't have to play this game that goes on. And so they're just known for this. I mean, they do a lot of other things well as well, but this is their claim to fame. This is what they've backed their business on. And everyone knows at Holden Motors, there's no haggle. You just go in and it's a very straightforward and friendly buying experience. So now moving on to your competitors. We're not going to spend any time on this, but the only reason we want to think about our competitors is because if you're about to make a claim, your USP, your point of difference, based around these things we've talked about, the ideal customer, what problem you're solving for them and how you do it in your superpower way, you want to make sure you're not making the same claim as someone else. Because you can't be the second one out there claiming the same thing because it just doesn't work. First to market is very important. So you've got to make sure that your competitors, if they might have other superpowers, and that's fine, you've just got to know what yours is, and you're making that clear to your ideal customer. Then you want to be able to, communicate this really clearly. And one of the ways that you can do that is through a guarantee. So one of the main reasons that people don't buy from someone is because of perceived risk, right? They're not sure what they're going to get, and they're afraid of having that feeling of regret. Yeah, if I buy, then I'm going to be hooked into this thing, or I've spent this amount of money. So how you put a guarantee in place. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy, like you don't have to get too creative with this, but it usually comes back to the emotion. If you can understand what the emotion is that someone has, the fear and what's underneath that, if you can put a guarantee around that, then it takes that off the table and makes it much easier for someone to buy. A couple of examples for you. The formula for crafting your guarantee, which I'll give you a second to have a think about. But there's going to be 2 or 3 most common reasons why people don't buy. And be careful of the logical reasons, because there's usually an emotion behind that as well. Sometimes the logical reasons aren't the main reasons. Sometimes they are, but sometimes people don't tell you the whole story. So understand the most common reasons why people don't buy from you. What's the underlying fear? It's usually regret, right? Have I made the wrong decision? Am I going to look stupid? What can you guarantee that will reduce that fear? It could be simple as money back guarantee. Sticking with the used car example, a client of mine, again in Canada, they specialised, their niche was in used Volkswagens. So they had the biggest range of used Volkswagens in all of Ontario and Canada. And we were talking about this idea of guarantee. And I said to them, look, what would you do if someone came to you and said, hey, I want my money back? And they said, well, as long as they haven't done something to the car, we'd probably do it. In fact, we have done it. I said, well, why don't we promote that? Why don't we promote that, I don't know, pick a time frame. They've got 90 days to bring their car back. No questions asked, money back, no, just straight process. And what do you think, how do you think they felt about doing something like that? Yeah, pretty nervous, right? Because what's the assumption that people all of a sudden are going to start returning their cars? But does that actually happen?
Less than 2%.
Less than 2%, right? If you look at, and one of the things I meant to say at the beginning is, as much as today, I obviously want you to get some good knowledge and some tools to use in your marketing. I want you to become curious and look at marketing out there. Because by looking at other marketing, particularly marketing that is working well, and it's working well if people keep running it generally, and infomercials are a great place to, if you're ever up at 2 a.m, I don't know, do they still run infomercials? I don't know. But they have these crazy guarantees, right? And they do it because they know it works. They absolutely know it works. So you might get maybe it's the 2% that bring it back, but if you work out what your conversion rate increases to because of your guarantee, I can almost guarantee that it's going to work out in your favour. So reduce the fear, and then, or as my example, so that these guys did that. They tested it for a quarter, they tested it for 90 days, and they found exactly that. Nothing changed. Or nothing changed in terms of returns, but the sale was easier because people had peace of mind. So a couple of examples. This is a classic one from the States. I had to throw it up there because it's just so well known. Has anyone heard of Zappos? Zappos, online shoe company. You can take 365 days to return your shoes after you buy them online, and they pay for the shipping, right? So you feel no risk with buying from Zappos, and they are a huge company now. I found this one online. They've got a pretty simple one. They've got a 4-point 100% guarantee. They've got a cost guarantee, and they've got some copy under each of these. And then one from a hairdresser. So their guarantee is that you will be happy with your hairstyle coming out of our salon, or we'll keep working on it until you are. So, and I should say in their website, they had tons of testimonials and stuff as well. So, when you present it here on its own, it doesn't necessarily look as powerful. It sounds a bit funny, but no, it's, so you just got to think about what is it that people, actually a hairdresser that I did work with, they did a guarantee that we guarantee you'll get more compliments from friends or families by getting a haircut with us than you have ever before. So if you think about what some people might be thinking about going and getting a haircut, I don't, but some people think about, how am I going to be perceived? Are people going to am I going to look like an idiot, or are people going to give me compliments? So that was a good guarantee for them. I'm not sure how they measured it. But so take a moment.
As a hairdresser, I can tell you that there's a whole lot of people that have very unrealistic expectations.
Are you a hairdresser?
I was the mother of a hairdresser.
Oh, right.
The stories that come back, they get a colour, they want bright purple hair, and then they come back and they go, but it's too purple.
Right.
And it's like, well, you want purple hair.
Right.
But they think that should come under their money back guarantee.
I see.
They want it to be brown now because they don't actually like the purple.
Right. Maybe she needs a new ideal customer. Yeah. Someone that's easygoing. Yeah, I mean, one of the founders of Zappos, Tony Shea, wrote a book called, what was it called? Anyone know the book? Anyway, look at something about happiness, delivering happiness. Delivering happiness. It's a great read about how to build the culture that they have in the organisation. Okay, so take a moment, and there's room there for a guarantee. Either think about you're not casting things in stone here, but just write a few things down. What could you guarantee, or what are the fears that people have from buying from you? Or what are the things that maybe people don't believe necessarily about your product or service that you can guarantee that you can stand behind? What would an extreme guarantee look like for you, like Zappos does? I don't think there's any other shoe retailer that has a free 365-day return policy. I've seen some companies do a double your money back guarantee. And a guarantee, like all these things, one of the most important principles behind everything we're talking about is that there's no right answers, right? I mean, the measure of a right answer is what the market says. So everything that we do, we want to test it. And measure it. So I'm sharing with you principles and ideas, but I might give you an idea right now that falls flat when you put it out in the market because it was just missing a little nuance. So that doesn't mean the principle is wrong, but we've got to test other things. We take the same principle and test different applications of it. Because the only way to know for sure if something works is if you test it and the market tells you, yeah, no, that's good, we like that, and you get the results from it. So always testing and measuring. People in this world I'm talking about with being curious about marketing, like particularly in the online space, people spend millions and millions of dollars on refining their marketing. And the beautiful thing about online is the results are so tangible and they're so immediate. And so you've got agencies that are running 1,000 different variations of the same ad. They're testing a word here, a button here, a colour here. They're just doing all this split testing for the same product or service, but they're doing that to try and refine the approach because they know they can't get it right. Like you can't just take the principles, put an ad together, and bam, off it goes and works. And that's why at the beginning when I talked about why most marketing doesn't work and what to do about it, never fall in the trap of putting an ad out there and it not working and going, that doesn't work, right? We got to try different things. Try again. Okay, so moving on, does anyone want to talk more about guarantees? Anyone want to share one? Anyone get to the point of actually writing a guarantee?
My extreme guarantee would be a full refund right up until the day of arrival.
Right. Okay, so someone could cancel at any stage and no questions asked. Yeah. What's that? But yeah. So if you think about that, right, because would you be a bit nervous about testing that?
Well, it has potential to cost me money because I end up with empty accommodation.
Right.
I haven't got enough lead time to refill.
Yes. Yeah. All right, so now we're going to get into some more tactical stuff. I mean, the guarantee is tactical, but we've sort of covered off that they're the questions you need to be able to answer. Who's my customer? What problem am I solving? What's our superpower? And then how do we sort of wrap all that up to be a clear point of difference in our messaging? Here's why we're different, and here's our guarantee to back it up. Okay, types of marketing. It's a very general term, but more than types of marketing, stages of marketing. So for some businesses, there can be up to 4 stages. I probably could be more if you want to break it down further, but the first one is awareness. Like you might have a product or service that people aren't that aware of. And so you've got to have a form of marketing that promotes awareness. And I've given some examples down here. And then you might need to move someone into education stage, which is educating them around why yours is awesome, or educating them on some aspects they haven't thought about regarding your product or service, so they become a more educated customer who will now value what you might have to offer a little more. And then you've got the ready customer. This person's already, they're already educated, they're aware, they're looking, they're ready to buy. And so your marketing to this person will be, more offer oriented because it's a call to action. They're ready to buy. And the last one is where you've already got a customer. We talked more about this last week around how you nurture advocates and generate referrals from them. So I put those 4 out there because you want to think about where you might need to put the most focus in your marketing, right? Is it around that awareness stage of letting people know you exist and getting traffic, if you like, or getting that inbound inquiry? Or are you getting plenty of that, but they're not as educated and you've got to sort of ripen them up a little more so they're going to be educated and ready buyers? Or is your market already, they're all out there. They know what you offer, right? You just got to have marketing that's going to give them an offer or a promotion that can get them in the door. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay, good. It's not in the book. No, it's new. Okay. I'm adding stuff. Yeah, I mean, all this is going to be on the website. Yeah. It will be, yeah. It's being videoed right now.
Is it in the toolkit?
It will be in the toolkit. Yeah, yep. Because there could be, well, obviously I've got here different examples of what might fall under each of these, and the way your message is crafted in each of these is going to be different as well. There's no point putting an offer necessarily in the awareness stage because they might not be ready to make a decision, depending on your business, but certainly at the ready stage. Then we want to talk about, within all of this, there's also 2 other categories. There's direct response marketing versus brand awareness. So think about the brand awareness as the type of marketing where, maybe you've got your logo on the local sports field, or you're running a radio ad, or something where you're getting that repetition or the frequency and reach, the advertisers call it. So there's a place for that. For most, again, generalizing, for most small businesses, I'm not a fan. I'm more of a fan of direct response. So direct response is about the marketing I put out the idea is that it is going to make a sale. Now, it probably falls more into the ready and the education space, but there's usually an applicability to it in your business. And let me show you why that's important first. So you saw this one last week. For those who weren't at last week's session, the download for this is available under that, the Raving Fan video. But this model says that we've already talked about our ideal customer. So once we know our ideal customer, we want targeted marketing, we want direct response marketing that's going to bring them into our business. Once we've got them as a customer, we want to give them the awesome experience, and we invest heavily in this so we can get repeat business and then have a system to generate referrals that brings more ideal customers. The reason that we want direct response is because marketing can be very expensive. We can spend a lot of money out there, particularly if we're doing this brand awareness type marketing. And it's usually unmeasurable, and it's hard to know what the true value is of that. But when we're doing direct response marketing, we know what the return is going to be because we're generally crafting an offer around that, and we're getting some metrics on it that can be clearly measurable. And when we do that, we can make sure we can get a return on investment for our marketing. And the rampant online marketing these days has just been great for that. When you run Google ads or you run Facebook ads or Instagram ads, all the metrics for that. How many people are looking at it, how many people are clicking on it, and how many go through to your website. And if you've got good analytics on your website, you know what your conversion rate is. You know how many phone calls are ringing. Right? There's lots of good ways to be able to measure those things. And the reason we want to measure, which I talked about this last week as well, is the 2 aspects that we want to know is what is our acquisition cost? So how much are we spending to get a customer? And what was the other half of the equation? Lifetime value. And obviously our goal is to drive this one down and drive this one up. So driving this one up is all around this, and driving this one down is getting better and better at your targeted marketing. So when we do that, that's when we start to move towards an unlimited marketing budget, because we know that our acquisition cost is affordable. We've got an affordable acquisition cost for the lifetime value that we're getting from that customer. So, sometimes this is easy to measure in your business. Some businesses it's a little more difficult, right? But, if you can't measure this number easily, then just having a go at some ballpark numbers and sort of guesstimating a little bit can at least put you in the ballpark. So let's look at how do we do direct response type advertising. I've got an example for you. So Prescott Removals. Anyone heard of Prescott Removals? No? Anyone selling their house? Anyone just sold their house? I did. And I got this in the mail. So this was a handwritten letter, a handwritten envelope here, with a moving guide, a magnet, and a cover letter from the owner. So I got this actually 3 days ago. And I thought, this is really timely because I'm about to give a presentation on marketing. So I gave David a call. I gave him a call and I said, Dave, I just got your piece in the mail. I got some good news and some bad news. Bad news is I'm not going to use your removal services. But the good news is I'm going to talk about you on Thursday night. Can I ask you a few questions? And so I asked him about the stats. So this was the moving guide. So it's a bit of an education piece, right? But he's also got an offer up there. And then he's got this check. You probably can't read that too well, but it's a checklist. When you're 6 weeks out, 2 weeks to go, 1 week to go, 1 day to go, what happens on the moving day, the utilities and services you need to connect. So it's a good little resource if you're moving. But here's what he had to say when I asked him. He said they send out 50 per week, and someone in the office does that. They get 20 calls. From that, they convert about half of those. The mailer is about $5 to send out by 50, so $250 just for the physical mailer. The people in the office takes them about 4 hours to do it. He didn't tell me the hourly rate, but I'm just throwing a number in there, roughly $30 an hour. So the total cost is $370. And so if they get 10 sales from that, their acquisition cost is $37. Now, has anyone paid a removalist recently or in the past, right? What do you think their gross profit for a move is?
$3,000.
Yeah, it's probably a fair bit, right? So is David doing this? Is he doing a good job here, do you think?
So how did he find out about you?
Yeah, great question.
Did you go sell?
No, he goes through, they go on to realestate.com.au and they get the sold listings. He said they started hey? All right. Oh, maybe they had already got their 50 for that week. Yeah. So, they could do a whole lot of different types of marketing, but I love this because our house sold, the information that he got is available to every removalist out there. I got one package in the mail from David, right? And so immediately, it's just a very simple way to get business, and this works brilliantly.
So why did you use him?
Because he doesn't deliver to Canada. I estimate he's at least $1,000, $1,500 in gross profit on every move. He's only local, so he's not doing massive moves, but that would be my guess. So some principles to understand here. When you're thinking about how to do this, and again, is anyone doing any kind of Facebook or online advertising, Google Ads? Yeah, so all this stuff I'm going to go through is really applicable for that stuff. So there's this one here. What's this one? Anyone know? AIDA, I don't know, there's different ways of saying it. Attention. First thing, you got to get someone's attention. So Dave did that by throwing that handwritten letter in the mail. And he said the handwriting is really important, and I'd agree with that, because when it, I knew it was a marketing piece, but it was handwritten, so it hadn't come out of a, just a mailing house. So then you got to get someone's interest. And he had my interest because this thing, the mailer was pretty handy. I've still got it because I'm going to reference it. Right, the tool that he gave me. This tool, it's pretty handy. And then you've got to build desire. And then you've got to have a call to action. So, and that might be maybe one of my criticisms on his piece here. He has got a special offer, which you probably can't see over the. He said, book your move, present this voucher, and get 25 free boxes to assist with the removal. And boxes are pretty expensive, so there's some value there. But I would probably have a little more urgency on there, somewhere to create. I mean, it's not bad. I mean, they get good numbers, so that's kind of the measure. But the other thing I probably would do with this piece is on the front page here, they've got a picture of them, which is not, I mean, it builds familiarity. You can see it's a family business and that kind of thing. I guess it builds a feeling of safety, but it's talking about them at the very front. The other principle you want to think about in your piece, because this is what your customers are thinking about, or your prospects. WIIFM. What's in it for me? So people are very selfish and they're only thinking about themselves. What's in it for me? And so I would lead with that. I would have the clear benefits on the front, the point of difference, that one word, that uniqueness, the guarantee. I'd have all that on the front. So I reckon that would do a better job of getting someone's interest. But I think, I mean, you tell me. I opened it and I looked at it, but maybe I was looking for material for tonight. I don't know. So there's those two philosophies. And then the last one that I want to share with you. And these are some of the principles around writing effective ads and marketing pieces. Number one is you want to be clear on the target. We've already talked about that. Number two is the headline. Not bad. Moving guide kind of gives a... What's that? Yeah. Headline, then offer. And lastly, where's my black? The copy. This is the order of priority. This is what's important in writing an ad. Number one is and we've already done the work on this or started the work, know who you're writing the ad to. Because the headline has to speak to this person. And I'm going to give you some examples of how to write headlines and some resources there. The headline is really important. So it should take up, if you've got a physical ad, like if it's an online ad or something like this, it should take up a lot of space because it's got to get people's attention, right? The headline does. If you write this great copy, but you don't engage them through a headline, then the copy's worthless. Because what people do is the right people read the headline and then they're curious to know about the offer. So the offer should be clear as well. The copy's important for sure, but people probably spend way too much time on the copy where they should be spending time on the headline. And a headline is something that you would do a lot of testing around. So some examples. If you want to learn how to write good headlines, have a look at some of these places and see how they write their headlines. It may not be applicable for your business, but if you look, they invoke a lot of curiosity. So they do things like, can you pass, this wine test, for example? You'll be something if you miss this guide to this. So there's an emotion there. You'll be sorry or whatever. You're running out of something. Here's how to fix it. The X best ways, the 5 best ways to get this without that. So the get would be the benefit without something being the pain. So I've pulled all these from this website, crazyegg.com. This site here, they had about 80 headlines or formulas for headlines. So they're all, and again, I refer back to the, not just those sites I shared with you, but pretty much any news site or any magazine. Like, these are people who study how to write headlines to engage people. It's all about eyeballs. So this is where you've got to get curious, see what other people are doing and how you might be able to use it in your business to draw more eyes where you want them. Whether that is going to be, a physical thing that you've got out, it could be you've got flyers somewhere sitting in another shop in one of your strategic partners. You've got a flyer there that has to catch someone's attention, or it is a Facebook ad or an Instagram ad, or the direct mail piece. Has anyone played around with headlines before? Yeah? Yeah, it's a lot of fun. When you see, no, it's funny because when you look at some of this stuff, it's easy to go, geez, that's a bit, really? Are we? So, but remember, you don't have to use the same flavour they're using, but the principles underneath it, right? The invoking curiosity or finding ways to get people's attention is absolutely critical. Otherwise, your marketing just falls flat. So, these tabloidy places that I'm giving you to look at, I'm not suggesting you take their style and put it on, but the principle they use, it works. That's what they're doing. And I've played around with tons of different stuff, and times I've got, I'm not doing that stuff, and I go back to what I think is more tasteful, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Taglines like this will attract different kind of client that might be what you're targeting your audience with.
Yeah, possibly, for sure. You might be surprised too. Again, it comes back to testing, right? It comes back to testing. Play around with things, and start safe. Start with something you feel really comfortable with, and test it. See what happens. Then make it a little more edgy, or something you're a little more uncomfortable with, but not majorly. Test that. Then do a small test of something you're completely uncomfortable with, and see what happens, right? It's all about the testing. It's all about testing. So,
Just talk for a little minute about offer. Like an offer, I know it doesn't always have to be monetary, but just a few sort of ideas around what an offer can be. Like, generally speaking though, people respond to an offer will be a discount, but then we sort of talk about in other forums, they say, it's not always about taking money off the bottom line. So,
the offer could be around your guarantee. For bookings made in the month of March, there will be a no cancellation fee right up until the second before you're supposed to arrive. That could be your offer. Yeah. Or you think about ways to value add.
Yeah, we quite often value add.
Yeah.
It might be you get free bike hire, free canoe hire, whatever, but we sort of flog that. We sort of think, well, what else can you do without it coming off the bottom line?
Yeah, you can use other people's bottom lines. So partner with complementary businesses that are also looking for customers and get them to give you an offer so that they're giving something away, but they're getting a new customer for it as well. Yeah.
But I just think offer is like what is our service, what's our product, not so much as a special offer.
No, it's usually to get people to take action, it's a special offer. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Send us your shopping list before you come and we'll get the groceries for you before you come.
Right. Righto, so let's take a look at how do we make all this work? How do you choose what to do? So this is our marketing vehicle. We call the marketing vehicle checklist. Resi, here you go. Thank you. And this is not an exhaustive list, but it's kind of a pretty good starting point on all the different things that you can use to promote, market your business. And they're not all going to be this direct response style. You know, I guess to be clear, not everything you do has to be direct response. But if you want an unlimited marketing budget, then you might want to incorporate some of that into what you're doing. Just like David the removalist did. He didn't run radio ads. He went straight to the target market. So take a look at that list, and you know, hopefully it's self-explanatory, but it might take a little bit to look at. So the first column is the currently using column, and you tick the things you're using, you put a cross next to the things you're not using, or if you're not sure you're using it, I guess you put in the question mark. Sorry, no, the tick is it's working, right? The cross is it's not really working, and the question mark is not sure if it's working. And then the use in the past, same thing. Did it work? Did it not work? Or were you not sure if it worked? And then you go and you tick the, should we be using these things? Should meaning, you know what, this is one that would be obvious to use for our company and we think it would be effective. The could be using is kind of nice too. Yeah, it would work, but you know, not really a high priority. And then not applicable. And then what you're going to do is move on to the prioritizing section, because sometimes there are just so many things that you could do to market your business, but we've only got so much time and so much money resources to do it all. You can't do it all. Or maybe you can, but most people can't. So then you've got to work out, well, what do we do? And that next prioritizing section is designed to help you with that. So it looks at three things. What's the skill level required to get this thing up and running? How much time is required? What sort of results do we think it might bring in? And how much budget is it going to require? So you put a score next to each of those, and that gives you a total, and you just make sure if it's skill level, if it's a lot of skill required, you might give it a 1, so a low score, meaning, relative to how much skill you've got. So that's a skill level. Have we got the skills to do it, or is it outside of our scope? Time required, if something takes not much time at all, you might give it a high score of 3. So you're scoring things that could work well for you or would be easy to do and give good results, should get a high score at the end. So when you finish doing this, you end up with 2 or 3 things that have a pretty good weighting. And the reason you're doing this is because your goal with your marketing is to end up with what we call a 10 by 10. A 10 by 10 says we've got 10 different strategies working out there that each bring in 10% of our total lead generation. It never works out exactly that way. It's never 10% evenly, but it's that idea that we want to have a marketing flywheel running. We always want to have marketing activity, because marketing works. If you picture a 20-ton flywheel, and you've got to get that moving from point 0, it takes a lot of effort and energy to get it going. But then once you've got it going, you've just got to keep it tapping, keep it running, and the thing will keep spinning. But if you stop pushing it and it slows down, then it takes a lot of effort to get going again. And invariably what we see happen a lot in small business particularly, if this is, call this revenue, we'll just call that results. Activity, call it activity. Activity and time. So when we are not busy, we do a lot of activity for marketing. And we do all that activity, like if we start off not being busy down here, the red line is how much work we've got on. The blue line is how much marketing we're doing. We do all this marketing and then we start to get busy, start to go up. What happens to the marketing activity? Oh, we've got to go and do the work. So marketing goes down. like this. But that marketing is a 20-ton flywheel. So when all of a sudden your marketing goes down, and then all of a sudden your work starts to go down, right? You say, oh, we've got to start marketing again, but now you've got to start spinning that flywheel again. So we want to avoid this up-down cycle. And we want to keep our marketing, which was our marketing, the blue line, we want to just keep it consistent. So while we're going to look for 10 different strategies to be running at any one time, if you've got nothing running right now, you're not going to have 10 running by next week. You might pick 1 or 2 to start with. And we learn how to do it, we test and measure how those are working, and we play around with them until the point where they're generating some results for us. And then we work out how to either automate it, systemize it, or outsource it, or get someone else to do it so that it can keep running always. And then we go for the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. And eventually, we get to the stage where we've got 10, and maybe it's not 10. Like in our business, we usually only ever have 6 running. 6, because it's 6 that we know work, and so we just keep them running. And depending on what they are, it might depend on how easy they are to turn on and off. But generally speaking, when you lose marketing momentum, it takes time to build it up again. So you don't want to let it stop. So what you're doing with this marketing vehicle checklist is going through and starting to look at what might be in our 10 by 10. What are the ones that would make sense for us? And you really want to think about the ones that not necessarily you think that you should be doing based on what everyone else says, but that you feel right for you. I think social media is a great example of that. Like social media can be an awesome marketing tool, but if you don't like social media and you despise it, then don't do it, right? You don't have to do these things. You can get to choose whatever you want.
Can you learn to like it?
Well, I don't know. I tried and failed. I don't do social media. Yeah, I just don't. But if you talk to anyone that's in my business, they'd say I'm crazy. But I don't care. I've got other things that work.
You can learn to understand it now instead of like it. I couldn't stand Instagram, but most of my business now comes from Instagram. I just sit down and learn it.
And you can outsource it too, right? You don't have to be the one that does it. The one thing I'll say about outsourcing though is that it's important, and you guys are at a head start now, but understanding some of these principles first before you outsource, because you want to make sure the person you're outsourcing to has a competency and a skill set to be able to do it effectively. If you don't have any knowledge around something, and this goes for anything, if you're outsourcing your accounting or you're outsourcing your HR, if you've got no knowledge around that, then you've got no way of knowing if the person who's doing it is any good or not. So you don't need to be an expert, but you just need to know enough to know if someone else is an expert or not, even if they tell you they are. So take a moment and have a go at ticking some of these things. And you don't have to do the whole thing, but if you haven't got many ticks, maybe go to the should be using column and have a think about it. So it's broken up into 3 areas: the internal things, which are things that might be in your premises, and the digital. There's a lot in all of this. I mean, you could pick one of these and spend a week talking about it, right? So that's what. Yeah, exactly. They're big topics, but you'll generally find some that resonate with you, and you think play well to your style or your skill set.
How long before you try something new, you can test it to see how efficient?
Great question. It might depend on what it is.
Because I was thinking about the vehicle decon.
What was that?
The vehicle on the car decon about my business.
Yep.
And I don't, it's just an idea, I don't even research how much it's going to cost it, but I think.
So car wrap.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just the back window.
Yep.
And I'm just wondering, well, how much, it's quite an investment without not knowing the return.
Great point. So if you're thinking about what I said before about testing and measuring, so the question was, how do I decide to do a car wrap? How do I know if that's going to be a good investment? Because how do I test that? So I would test that through online marketing first. So I would think about what you think you're going to put on the back. Like, is it going to play to some of these principles we've talked about? Are you going to have a call to action on there? Is there going to be any kind of, where did I put it, headline? Like, what do you want it to do? And then you might be able to play around with some online ads and see what's going to work and what won't work, because you get instant feedback on those. And so you can look at the characteristics of your ad that are working and incorporate those, whatever you feel like you want to do, onto your car. If it's just going to be a general wrap, like a branding type wrap.
Yeah, usually, I see other vehicles, they just have like their logo and maybe like a strap line.
Yeah. You won't know until you do it and test it. Yeah. Yeah. I do think car wraps are very good. Yeah. I think they're, like, every one that I've seen has been effective. I'll share a story with you. When I went to Canada one time, a friend of mine who's in the same business as me lent me his car, and he had it wrapped, like with all this stuff. And I was like, oh, really? And I got a client out of it, right? No, but it didn't matter. I was in the car, and I got out of the car, and the guy said, oh, what's this about more time and more money? And I said, oh, yeah. What's your business? Yeah.
But it's still something that can't quite be quantified.
That's right.
Talking about that direct response.
Yeah.
And you're talking about brand awareness, because that is brand awareness.
And I think there's a place for both. Yeah.
But you said you don't like brand awareness.
No, I said, well, okay, thank you. Let me correct that. So I don't like just brand awareness. You've got to work on both. Yeah, and it depends what your budget is and what your long-term. If you're Coca-Cola, brand awareness, go for your life, right? I mean, but most of us don't have those budgets. Most of us are pretty limited in the dollars we've got to spend, so we've got to make them count.
But brand awareness is things like having a sign, making sure everything's consistent to start with.
Yeah.
And then when they're seeing it, they're seeing exactly the same thing in the same messaging. So they might say to you, I saw your website, but little do they know they saw your sign, they saw your car,
Yeah.
they saw your business card, and then somebody told them about you, and then they actually saw your website.
Yeah, I guess when I say, you're right, so brand awareness is a misleading term for what I'm saying. Call it branding marketing, which is about, I want my, like the sponsorship sign on the side of the sports field, or running the radio ad around, your insurance company. It's been around for 40 years, called Johnson's Insurance. Like that kind of thing, I think, is usually a waste of money for small business. Having a clean brand and a consistent brand, very important. Agree, 100%. Yep. Yeah, thanks for raising that. Yeah. So then, okay, so we get our list of things that we want to do. Now, how do you execute on that? Do you just sort of say, okay, give it to the marketing department and say, okay, here, take care of that, right? So we use a marketing activity calendar, which looks, and it's a template downloadable, looks something like this. So it's a little off the screen there. You list the things that you want to do, and then you simply have who's responsible for it, what's the level of activity, and what's the budget that we allocate to it. So you're planning this out ideally for 6 months, and then every 3 months you come and revisit and say, okay, how do we plan for the next 3 months? So you've always got a 6-month rolling activity calendar. Because generally speaking, when you're going to do some marketing, there's a bit of a lead up to it. You can't just jump in and do it immediately. There's some thought that has to go into it. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. Depends. Hopefully. So knowing what you're doing for the next 6 months gives you a level of consistency and peace of mind. And if you are outsourcing it, this becomes your tool to get aligned with your whatever agency you're using to do the activity. But it's not complicated, right? It's very simple. The who might be who's actually doing it internal, or it might be the person that's, the champion of it happening external. But it's just the person that's accountable for it in the business. And then, this one adds up, so it gives you a total marketing budget for the next 6 months. But just gives you a bit of an idea of how you're rolling things out, and, puts it in one place rather than just sort of saying, what are we doing? No, that's right, we've got that thing running, and we're supposed to be doing that one next week, and whatever else. But you can obviously, change that and edit it. It's just an Excel file. But I find that's really important. And then having, even if it is you, having a marketing meeting at least monthly. So you sit down and you look at your marketing calendar and you say, okay, what's on for next month? What are the results that we'll be getting from what we're doing so far? We ready to roll out again. It's just a little bit of a review rather than making it ad hoc. When it becomes ad hoc, then we fall into the usually can fall into the trap of start and stop. So for most businesses, outsourcing is going to be a good idea. If you haven't got someone internal that's going to wear that sales and marketing hat, if it's going to be you, but you're also the person doing the work and servicing the customers and doing the finance and doing everything, usually speaking, if you're going to wear the marketing hat, you're going to do this because it's just going to fall off. So that's, it comes back to budget and it comes back to the planning, but starting small, starting with direct response so you can get a return on what you're doing is usually the way to approach it. Does that make sense? You want to say something, Sue?
Oh, I'm just thinking, how does that fit in the budget? Like, what would be a ballpark thing if you outsourced your marketing? Because I'm that person.
Yep.
Trying to be everything to everybody.
Yep.
And that's me.
Yep.
When you've got time, forget about it. When you're busy, do it when you've got time. And it's me.
Yep.
So
Yep.
if you did outsource it, like talking small business numbers, how do you know what budget is?
I do this first. I get really clear on what you think what you think is going to be effective. Yeah, and then I'd sit down and talk with someone and say, because it's very hard. I wouldn't want to put a number against it until I'm clear on what I think is going to be effective. Yeah, because then I want to have a chat with the person about, okay, how do we test some of this stuff, and what do you think budget do you think we should allocate for some testing, and so we can start to work it out from there. Yeah. Julian, you raising? No? Scratching?
Well, I guess I was going to... The complication with outsourcing is outsourcing.
Yes.
Finding the right person.
100%.
And the money's not the problem, the thinking's not the problem, it's the outsourcing.
Yep. Yep.
And therefore, in our case, we don't outsource
Right.
because it doesn't work.
Well, it can work. It can work. Yeah. But I hear you because I know plenty of people.
In big advertising, where it doesn't work until they find the right person. But you need big budgets to find the right person.
But that's also, that's also where a bit of this knowledge becomes really helpful, because you can ask some probing questions of the person that you're outsourcing to, and you can tell by their response how tuned in they are. And I would encourage you, if online was going to be a thing you were going to be focusing on, there's lots of resources out there to become a little bit more educated on how that should work.
I mean, I can only give you out, again, that's what I do.
Yeah.
And I spend more time saying no. So why the time that I spend trying to find out whether it's the right person, I might as well do it myself.
Well, maybe it depends if you enjoy doing it. Like in some cases, it is the right thing to do because that's where your skill set and your talent is. Like some business owners, marketing is their thing. They should be outsourcing the bookkeeping and the operations to get someone else to do that stuff. When we talked about the time session, it was about understanding what are you really good at, and so what are your 3 big rocks that you should be spending most of your time doing. So getting clear on that. But if one of them's not marketing, then your marketing is going to suffer, right? If marketing is not your thing and you're trying to do it, it's going to suffer. And if it suffers, then it comes back to the up and down, right? And it's, in a lot of cases, it's the fuel for the business. It's what brings the business in. So if you haven't got consistency in the marketing, your business is up and down, and then you're like, okay, we haven't got enough money. It's a vicious cycle. It's about consistency. It's back to that flywheel. So whatever you have to do or whatever's going to be the best setup so you can be consistent at it. Be consistent. So it's always out there running for you, not start, stop. Yeah. Folks, that was about it. I think we've got a few actions, summarising some actions. So what can you do from here? First one, know your marketing blueprint. So if that was sort of a new exercise for you or you sort of got in it, we didn't spend a lot of time on it. And if you haven't thought a lot about those sort of questions, then I highly encourage you to go and spend more time on that. That's sort of the ideal customer, your superpower, knowing the problem you're fixing, and your USP. Understand the prospect journey. So that was the 4 stages, from the awareness through the education, through the ready, through to the nurture and advocacy. Select your marketing vehicles. So that was the marketing vehicle checklist. Plan your marketing activity calendar, so that's a downloadable Excel file. If you want that sooner than it's going to be up online, just send me an email, say, Jamie, send me the... Actually, that one is on our website. So if you go on our website, salesup.com.au, and you go under the book resources, they're all free and downloadable. Pretty much everything I've talked about tonight is on that website. And then allocate responsibility and accountability. So we just talked about that, outsource for internal, and develop the meeting rhythm. So even if it's you, have a meeting rhythm monthly. Bring up the marketing activity calendar and say, okay, how are we doing? Who's doing this? What's working? What's not? What have we got to change? What's the next 3 months look like? It's about, and this is going to be a challenging thing in small business, but it's about giving energy to the marketing. Like whatever you give energy to grows. So, if your energy is on-off, we've talked about it, the marketing is going to be on-off, your results are going to be on-off. So we've got to give it dedicated energy. Put energy into something and it's going to grow. It's going to grow.